There's something really important I want to say straight off the bat. This part of the Reconnect framework, this first stage, isn't about doing more. It's not about fixing. It's not even about achieving anything really, except from, well, learning how to feel again. Fully, honestly, even when it's messy, and especially when it feels unfamiliar. Because for a lot of high performers like us, that sounds inefficient. If you're anything like I was, you built a life on outcomes. Your confidence has been earned through performance. You get things done. You know how to deliver. You've probably even been praised for being unshakable, or maybe unbreakable. For a long time, I wore that as my badge of honor. I wasn't too emotional. That I was always calm. I was always rational. I was always composed. And I really thought that is what emotional stability was until someone I deeply respected and trusted, they challenged me and said, Dan, have you ever considered that maybe you're emotionally numb? And that made me reflect because when I was really honest with myself, I had to admit I hadn't felt deep sadness in really years, but I also hadn't been really feeling deep joy either. I was living life playing a single note, like a single key on the piano, ding, ding, steady, predictable, and I was calling that peace. But if life is a symphony, what I was doing wasn't music, it was flat. Functioning, sure, fulfilling, no way, not a chance. If you're finding value in this story, I'd love to invite you to hit the subscribe button below. You'll be the first to receive content just like this, honest, relevant, and here to support you on your journey. With every like and every follow, together we're succeeding in our mission and reconnecting the world with what matters most. And that is, of course, each other. Thank you so much. Think of your emotional world like a ball, complete round experience. Now imagine extracting certain feelings, the ones that you're taught to hide, push away, or power through. What happens to the ball if you extract all of that? Like for you, does it deflate? Loses bounce, gets a flat spot, doesn't roll the way it used to? That is essentially my life. So the truth is, if you want to experience more life, more joy, more connection, more intimacy, more freedom, then you have to be willing to feel more of life. And that also includes the parts that feel inconvenient. They feel irrational. They feel vulnerable. That includes discomfort, which is why the guide to emotional intimacy is light on action and heavy on reflection, depth, feeling. It's not here to teach you what to feel. It is here to introduce you to, or reintroduce you back to yourself. What you'll notice in the workbook, and I'll drop a link below, it's not full of activities to tick off. It's more of an invitation, if you like, a gentle confrontation with what you might have pushed aside for years. So if you feel resistance, it's probably a good thing. If it feels unproductive, it's probably even better. That's your system realizing it can't think its way through this. You're not broken, you're just unpracticed with feeling. And that's the whole point of this exercise. What I really want to be clear on is this. Success here isn't about finishing anything. It's about noticing what's hardest for you to feel and then being willing to stay there long enough for it to become really ordinary. Kind of like just seeing stones on the side of the road. They're not scary. They just are. And they just pass you by every day. And so that's the work here, to make your emotions feel just safe to be within you, to be around you, to experience, so they can just be. And then finally they can start speaking to you again. Now, if you have resistance to this, if you're already thinking, do I really need to feel more? Like, isn't this just a distraction from the real work and the productivity? It's probably expected. I want to show you exactly why this matters more than I think anything else that we can be doing in today's world. Not just for your relationships, but for your sense of self, sense of well-being. So why should you, someone successful, driven, competent, care about feeling? Well, let me tell you why. There's no such thing as emotional people. I've heard the phrase. There's just people, humans. And to be human is to feel. It's not a defect, it is the very feature that makes us human. It's the very thing that differs us from machines, from algorithms, from AI. If you want job security in a world that's changing fast, you need to develop your ability to emotionally connect. Because emotional intimacy with yourself and with others, that's irreplaceable. And if you're really honest, well, isn't it what you've been craving all along? Like, we've graduated from an ambition-driven world. 100 years ago, people were working 70 hours a week just to put food on the table and have shelter over their heads. Many of our grandparents lived through the war, through famine. The trauma that required emotional disconnection just to survive. Men were sent to fight and fought battles. Women had to send to their boys, their sons. In those days, you didn't feel, you functioned. It was that disconnection, that conditioning. It's in our lineage, yes. It's passed down like a scar that no one wants to talk about now. So it makes perfect sense that we've inherited this inner judgment towards emotion. Yes. That you've learnt to suppress, manage, minimize what was once necessary for survival. But seriously, like now, look at us. We're living in a reality that the past royalty couldn't have even dreamed of. We've come so much further than that. Yet many of us feel more disconnected, less fulfilled, and numb than ever before. Ambition is no longer enough. We're entering into a meaning-driven life. And the truth is, meaning isn't found in your to-do list, and you already know that. It's a felt experience. Purpose, peace, satisfaction, connection. They're all states of being. They're not outcomes. And they don't live out there. They live in here within us. But here's the catch. If you've spent your life disconnecting from emotion, labeling some as bad and some as too much, and they don't disappear, they just get stored away. Emotion is energy, and energy doesn't just vanish. It gets trapped, it gets bottled up, gets boxed away and put out in the back shed. And eventually, the shed is so full, you don't want to open the door anymore. You stop going near it at all. That's when life begins to go grey, right? That's when you start calling emotional numbness stability. I know, because this is my story too. That was me. When I first got into personal development, I thought I was doing pretty well. I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad, I was always calm, I had a good life. And yet I still feel flat, predictable. Like, as I mentioned, playing that one single key over and over. Ding, 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 ding. I didn't know what was missing until I realized there are a lot more keys to the song of life. So how about Mozart? Like the high notes and the low notes, to be able to navigate them all. I didn't need more tools. I needed to feel again. And my bet is this is for you too. You don't need to be looking for happiness. You don't need to be chasing joy or excitement or purpose. They're already there within inside you. You just need to uncover them. But first, you might need to make some space. And that means moving through what's been boxed up. I often hear people say, after doing some work together, they say, "But Daniel, I feel so sad. I thought I was supposed to feel better." And my honest reply, I just say, no, I didn't promise you'd feel better. I said that I'd help you feel it again, to help you feel more. And when you do this work, you start to notice a pattern. First comes the irritation, then the frustration. Maybe you've already got that. Then the anger starts to surface, and below the anger, sadness, and then grief. And then after that, the weight begins to lift, the colors return, you look outside and the world seems brighter, because emotions aren't meant to be held onto, they're meant to move. Like, look at children. One moment they're crying, the next they're laughing. They trust their feelings. They don't get stuck within them. They're emotionally available. And at some point in life, That became too much in this adult world of numbness. So we learnt to lock it all away. But now, today, we get to reclaim them. I remember being heartbroken at 31. I experienced love for the first time at 30 and then heartbroken at 31. I was embarrassed by that, but I was completely undone. I felt like I'd failed, like I'd been abandoned. And yet, deep in that grief, something opened up in me. I felt more alive than I had in years. And now, years later, I can cry on a plane at the beauty of a sunset. Tears not so much from pain, but from the presence, the gratitude. And I get to feel this so deeply. It's such a beautiful thing. This is what I'm wanting for you. Not just sadness, but an awe, the ecstasy without the pills. Compassion for strangers, pride in yourself, tears over music, sunsets, or even just the children laughing. And a kind of peace that says, this is who I am. And I like me here. You don't have to love sadness. You just need to be able to become comfortable enough to let it come and let it move through you. So you can return to who you are. Fully. Quickly. Freely. So maybe now you're thinking, okay, I get it. Hopefully you're willing, you're in. But how do I actually do this? That's perfect. That's where we'll go next. So what we use is a 4-part framework to build emotional intimacy with ourselves, and we can use this for others as well. Something that most of us are never taught. I've never known anyone that has learned this through childhood. But if we're going to lead our lives with meaning, connection, presence, we need more than just an insight here. We need a process. So the guide to emotional intimacy is a 4-step framework. Name it, own it, feel it, release it. So let's take these and go through them one by one together. Step 1, name it. Have you ever tried solving a problem you couldn't define? No, that's half the problem. Naming our emotions is foundational because language gives shape to our experience. It becomes the handle we can reach for, the reference point we can return to again and again. Now, I know some people hesitate with labels, but in this case, a label, it doesn't limit you, it liberates you to be able to take the next step. Because what you cannot name, you cannot experience, you cannot understand or begin to learn how to understand and feel or process. Most people, and I mean really most, even native English speakers, we haven't learnt the language of emotion. We grow up with words like, how are you doing? Not too bad. Bit flat. Feel like kind of like crap. That's not emotional literacy. That's emotional avoidance in disguise. Shows what we're avoiding. So let's get back to the basics. We need to begin with the 6 core emotions, which is anger, fear, joy, love, sadness, and surprise. From there, each one of these has dozens of nuances and variations. Sadness might show up as disappointment, regret, or loneliness. Joy might feel like delight or playfulness or hope. You'll find a full emotional vocabulary in the list that I want to include in the workbook that you'll find linked below. Use that. I'll help you to bring to the front of the awareness of what there is to feel. And it's not just the words, it's the sensations too that might come up. It's the butterflies, the lump in your throat, the goosebumps, the chest tightening, a flutter within you, the fog. All of these are messengers because your body tells you the truth. And when you name what is present in your body, it finally allows it to be seen, to be seen and feel seen. So step 2 is own it. Naming the emotions is just the beginning. Once you recognize what you have, you've got to own it, which sounds obvious, but here's the thing. Most of us own the emotions we're comfortable with. If you're naturally upbeat, it's probably easy for you to say, yeah, I feel joyful. That fits your image, your self-image of who it is that you want to be. But what about the shame, the rage, the jealousy? Most people exile these parts of themselves. They've labeled them as bad or weak or too much. That's what they've been taught to label them as. So you push them down, you disown them, you pretend they're not part of you. But here's the thing, when you judge or hide an emotion, you're judging and hiding parts of yourself. And that part of you, the one who felt disappointed, bitter, abandoned, that they've been like locked away in the attic for like some unwanted guest, carrying that kind of internal shame, it's exhausting. You're performing a version of yourself that you think the world will accept while spending your energy managing all the masks. And I know that you felt this. Imagine how much lighter your life would feel if you didn't have to keep the parts of yourself there hidden. So what do we do instead? Well, we invite those parts back in. We pour them a cup of tea, sit across from them at the table and say, hey, you part of me, you belong here. Of course you feel this way. Anyone who's lived through what we've lived through would feel that way. That's how we begin to develop emotional maturity. Not by fixing our emotions, but welcoming them back in. So once you've named it, once you've owned it, you let it be here, that's where self-acceptance begins. That's a really beautiful byproduct of what we're doing here. So step number 3 is then to feel the emotion. Now it comes the one where, we've been taught to avoid. Feeling it. When you first invite emotion in that's been deprived and neglected, it can be really scary. It's really uncomfortable, which is why most people stop the process here. They avoid it. They feel like the heat rising and they think this is too much. But what if this is a sign that it's actually working? That you're actually feeling? It's not dysfunction. That's the evidence that safety is being built within you. That your nervous system calibrating finally feels enough to trust you to let the emotions rise again. Think of it like a bird. It won't land unless it feels safe. And once it does, well, then you can allow it to sing, stretch its wings. So the question becomes, how can I create more space for this feeling to grow? Well, a really fantastic way is with your breath. It's your ally here. Breath tells your body it's safe to feel this. And here's the paradox. When you let yourself feel something fully, it doesn't stay. Which brings us to step number 4, which is releasing it. So when emotions are fully felt, they move. That's the design. Emotion is energy in motion. Maybe you've heard that before. And once it's seen, once it's named, once it's owned, once it's felt, it doesn't need to stay stuck anymore. That's when you cry, you exhale, you shake, you laugh. Or maybe you just feel the weight lift. Sometimes after the release, actually a lot of the time after the release, I hear people say, it feels like I've lost like 10 kilo. That's because emotionally they have. Emotions have weight. Like even grief, one of the heaviest of all, it can be moved, it can be released. And when it does, doesn't mean that the love is gone. It means there's room now to remember the joy of those moments. Hold the memories without drowning in them. So releasing isn't about forgetting, it's about completing the process so we can trust the process again. And more importantly, trusting yourself. Your body knows how to do all of this. Trust your body. This is what it was built for. It's one of the human functions. It's only ever in your mind that you'll try to interrupt it with judgment, shame, fear. Let it talk, but don't let it lead this process. So the question I want to ask is, what if you actually did this process? What if you just stopped trying to understand emotions and started leading with them? What if you didn't have to overthink your life to find peace in it? What if joy came back, not because you chased it, but because you finally cleared the space for them to return? What if you could feel proud of how you're living, not just what you're producing? So I'll make you a promise. When you commit to feeling again, not just talking about it, reading about it, but actually practicing it, you'll notice, I promise you, you'll notice how everything changes. That relationships that felt tense or distant or flat, they start to open, they start to soften again. You have to breathe again within them. You wake up with more clarity, more energy, not because you're adding anything, but because you stopped carrying everything that you weren't meant to hold. This is the work of reconnect. not to change who it is that you are, but to return to who you've always needed to be. So the invitation is this. Don't try to master the whole framework. That's not what this is about. Just begin with the first step that challenges you. Maybe it's step number 1, maybe it's step number 3. Open the workbook. Rewatch the section that spoke to you in this video. Choose one feeling to sit with this week. Let that be enough. Whenever you're ready, we're here. And so I'd love to see you in the next step. Until then, keep showing up for you, because you really are worth this work. We'll see you inside.